The galaxy was silent. Not the soft, peaceful kind of silence. This was the heavy, endless silence of deep space, where light from the nearest star took years to reach, and where no life had been seen for centuries. Far from any known trade route, a single alien survey ship drifted between the stars, scanning for minerals and mapping unclaimed systems. The ship was called Zereth. It was old but reliable. Its crew, a mix of veterans who had crossed thousands of light years and young recruits hoping for an easy assignment far from danger. Captain Varlek stood at the command platform, watching the swirling display of space on the main holoscreen. He was tall, with sharp ridges along his head, signs of his warrior bloodline. But out here, in forgotten sectors, there were no wars, only rocks and dust. At least, that's what he believed. Until the signal came. "Captain," said Luro, the ship's sensor officer, her voice tense. "I'm picking up something strange." Varlek didn't move. "Strange how?" "Another mining drone?" "No, sir." Luro's hands danced over her console. "This isn't civilian. The reading is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like pure energy, but stable. Output is far beyond any known warship in our records." That made Varlek turn. "Location?" he asked. 32,000 kilometers ahead, drifting near the outer rim of the Zaros system, Luro replied. "It's moving." "No, wait, it's not moving at all. But the power levels are climbing." "Climbing?" Varlek frowned. Ships didn't just sit still with power rising. Either it was preparing to fire weapons, or visual, he ordered. The screen shifted. At first, all they saw was the darkness of space. Then, slowly, a shape emerged from the black, a massive, shadow-like object, so large it made the Zereth look like an insect. "Is that an asteroid?" One of the young crew members whispered. "No," Luro said firmly. "Asteroids don't have perfect symmetry." They all stared. The object's surface was smooth, almost liquid-like, but blacker than the surrounding void. No engines were visible. No windows. No markings in any alien language. It didn't look like a ship. It looked like something built to be forgotten. Varlek's second officer, Arachin, spoke quietly. "Should we hail it?" Varlek hesitated. There were rules about first contact scan. First, communicate second, approach last. But something about the object felt wrong. "Send a universal hail," he said. Arachin tapped the controls. Transmission sent. Waiting for... The lights on the bridge dimmed for a second. Everyone glanced around. "What was that?" Varlek asked sharply. "Unknown interference," Luro said. "It came from the object. The moment we transmitted. Her console beeped. "Sir, it's ignoring us." The crew shifted uncomfortably. No ship ignored a hail unless it was automated. Or hostile. Varlek tried to keep his voice calm. "Scan it. I want every detail." Luro ran the scans. At first, the display showed nothing. Then, in strange bursts, fragments of data appeared. Size. Estimates that changed every second. Readings of impossible density. Temperatures that fluctuated wildly. The ship's computer failed to classify it. "This doesn't make sense," Luro whispered. "It's like the scans are being reflected back at us, but wrong, like it's rewriting the data." "Rewriting?" Varlek's voice grew hard. "That's not possible." "It's happening," Luro insisted. It's aware we're scanning it." Before anyone could respond, the object changed. Thin lines of faint white light began to glow along its surface, tracing patterns like veins. Slowly, they spread, illuminating the black hull in strange, alien geometry. The light wasn't bright. It felt cold, like moonlight. The crew felt it before they understood it. The thing was waking up. "Sir," Arachin said in a low voice. It's alive." Varlek didn't believe in superstition. But there was something about that moment, the lights, the silence, the sense of something ancient, that made his skin crawl. "Distance?" he asked. 29,000 kilometers. Luro replied, still stationary. Hold position, Varlik ordered. Do not approach. Minutes passed. The object did not move, but the glowing lines pulsed in a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat. The Zereth systems picked up strange radio bursts, not language, but patterns too precise to be random. Luro's hands froze over her console. Sir, I think it's scanning us. The bridge fell silent. What do you mean? Varlik asked. I mean our shields, our weapons, our engine output. It's pulling all of it. And it's doing it without touching our systems. I can't block it. Varlik's jaw tightened. End scan. Break link. I can't, Luro said helplessly. It's not a link. It's like... It's reading the space around us, and the... space inside us. Arachin stood slowly. Captain, there's a story my grandfather told me. About a race that existed before the Council formed. Before our kind even sailed the stars. Varlik shot him a sharp look. Not the time for myths. But... Arachin kept talking. They were called the Lost Builders. No one knows what they looked like. They built ships that could bend space like fabric, ships that never died, only slept. The old records say the galaxy was quiet after they vanished, because everyone feared what they left behind. Varlik didn't reply. He didn't heed to everyone. On the bridge was thinking the same thing. Was this one of them? Sir, Luro's voice snapped them out of it. Power levels just spiked again. This time, it's pointing at us. Pointing? Varlik turned to the screen. From the object's side, a section of the hull unfolded silently, revealing a single dark opening. A faint blue light shimmered deep inside. It wasn't a weapon port, not exactly, but the Zereth sensors screamed warning signals. Captain, Arachin said we should leave. Varlik didn't answer right away. Curiosity was a dangerous thing, but it had kept explorers like him alive through countless missions. Still, this felt different. This felt like looking into the eye of something that saw you as small. Hold. Position, he said finally. We came to explore. That's what we'll do. The crew didn't argue, but their silence was heavy. The Zereth drifted closer, scanning again despite Luro's protests. The object's surface rippled faintly, as if aware of their movement. And then, it moved, not in the way normal ships move, not with thrust, not with engines. It simply shifted through space, closing the distance in a heartbeat without acceleration. One moment, it was far. The next, it was close enough that its black hull filled the view screen. Distance. 10,000 kilometers, Luro shouted. It's faster than light. It moved without a jump signature. Varlik's heart pounded. No known species could move like that. The glowing lines on the hull brightened, casting pale light across the Zereth's bridge. For the first time, the crew saw symbols etched into the black metal symbols no translation database could read. Luro's console beeped again. Incoming message. The speakers came alive with a deep, distorted sound. Not words, not language. But it wasn't noise either. It was too deliberate, like a voice speaking through a wall. It's a code, Luro said, but I can't break it. Arachin stepped closer to the screen. It's not meant for us to understand. It's meant to warn us. The sound cut off. The object was still. And then, without warning, a second signal appeared on the sensors, a huge burst of energy from the same object, spreading outward in a perfect sphere. It washed over the Zereth harmlessly, but every system on the ship flickered for a second. What was that? Varlik asked. Luro stared at her console. It just scanned the entire sector. Every ship, every station, every planet. All at once. Varlik's voice grew low. Why? No one answered. Finally, the object began to move away slowly this time, gliding like a predator that had lost interest. But its path wasn't random. It was heading deeper into the Zero system, toward the dark, uncharted worlds at its edge. Varlik's instincts screamed at him to turn back. But another part of him, a dangerous, stubborn part, wanted to know more. "Follow it," he said. The crew exchanged worried glances, but the engines hummed, and the Zirith began to trail the massive shape. Hours passed. The object never slowed, never wavered. The Zirith's systems continued to record impossible readings. Its mass changed every few minutes, as if it wasn't solid at all. Sometimes it was larger than a moon. Sometimes smaller than a frigate dot. No one spoke much. The glowing lines on the object's hull pulsed faintly in the distance, hypnotic and unsettling. Then, without warning, the object vanished. "Lost contact," Luro cried. "It's just gone." "Check for jump signatures," Varlek ordered. "None," Luro said. "It didn't jump, it just disappeared." Varlek stared at the empty screen. His gut told him it hadn't left. It was still there, somewhere. Watching Dot, and then the main screen flashed. A new shape appeared closer than before. Much closer. The object was back. Only now it wasn't just drifting. It was facing them, and the lines on its surface. The object hung in space like a shadow carved from the void. It was close now, close enough that the crew of the Zirith could see details on its black surface. No windows, no engines, no visible weapons, yet the sensors screamed warnings that made no sense. Captain Varlek stood on the bridge, his jaw tight. "Report." Luro, the sensor officer, didn't take her eyes off the glowing console. "Power levels are climbing again." "Sir, they're already higher than the largest warship in the Galactic Council." "That's not possible," Arrechin muttered. "I'm looking at it," Luro replied. "And there's more. Its energy field isn't static, it's moving, like it's alive." Alive. That word had been whispered more than once since they found this thing. Varlek didn't like it. Machines were machines. Ships were ships. They weren't alive. But here, in the silent dark, he wasn't sure anymore. The massive object did nothing. It didn't move. It didn't speak. The pale lines across its surface pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat in the void. Arrechin finally said, "Sir, we should retreat." Varlek didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the view screen. "What happens if we run?" "We live," Arrechin replied. "And what if we don't?" Varlek asked. "Then we—" Arrechin stopped. Everyone knew the answer. Luro's console beeped sharply. "Sir, it's scanning us again, but this time, it's not just our ship." "What else?" Varlek asked. "Our minds." The bridge fell into silence. Luro's voice trembled. "I don't know how to explain it, sir. The scan is interacting with brainwave patterns. It's mapping us thoughts, emotions, memories. It's pulling them like data." "That's—" Arrechin started, then stopped. The word impossible seemed meaningless now. Then, the object moved. It didn't accelerate like normal ships. It didn't flare with engine light. 1 second it was still. The next, it glided forward smoothly, like space itself carried it. "Distance closing rapidly," Luro said. "How rapidly?" Varlek asked. "Too fast," she replied. The alien crew felt the putzia weight of it. The closer the object came, the more the air on the Zirith seemed heavier, as if their lungs had to work harder. Every sound felt muffled. The lights dimmed slightly without losing power. "Captain," Arrechin said quietly, "this thing isn't just in front of us. It's around us." Varlek didn't respond. He didn't want to admit that he felt it too, that strange sense of being swallowed by something far larger than the visible object. Finally, Varlek gave the order. "Hail it again." Arrechin transmitted on every frequency. Silence. Then static. A low hum filled the speakers. Not words, not language, but a deep, vibrating tone that made the walls tremble. "What is that?" one of the junior crew whispered. "It's measuring us," Luro said. "That sound, it's a harmonic scan." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone had heard of harmonic scans, ancient methods of mapping physical and structural weaknesses, but no one in modern space travel used them anymore. They were crude, imprecise, and terrifyingly intimate. "It's treating us like prey," Arichin muttered. Suddenly, every console on the bridge flickered. Lights blinked. The ship's main AI shut down for exactly 1 second, long enough for every crew member to feel exposed, and then returned as if nothing had happened. "Report." Varlek snapped. "No systems damaged," Luro said. "But, sir, our AI has changed." Varlek turned sharply. "Changed how?" "It's faster," Luro said, frowning. "Smarter. And it's answering questions before I finish asking." Varlek looked at the viewscreen. "It rewrote our AI in 1 second." "That's not possible," Arichin said again. "But this time," it sounded hollow. The massive object stopped moving. For a long moment, it simply floated there, silent and still. Then, the pale lines on its hull it literally shifted, rearranging into a new pattern. The crew watched as the shapes formed something like letters, but in no language they knew. "Is it trying to communicate?" Varlek asked. Luro shook her head. "I don't think so. This feels like a designation. A name, before anyone could speak further." The ship's external cameras picked up something new, a small fragment detaching from the giant hull. It was tiny compared to the massive vessel, but still larger than a fighter craft. Sleek, black, and featureless, it moved with the same unnatural smoothness as the giant. "It's sending something toward us," Luro said. The smaller craft closed the distance in seconds. It stopped just meters from the Zereth's forward hull. No weapons, no obvious engines. Just a single white light on its front, glowing faintly. "What is it doing?" Arichin asked as if in answer. The light flared bright and sharp. It swept across the Zereth, scanning every inch of the alien ship's exterior. The white beam moved in precise lines, like it was painting the Zereth into its memory. Then, the beam shone directly into the bridge. Every crew member froze. The light was so intense it felt like it was piercing skin, bone, thought. They couldn't move, couldn't speak. Varlek clenched his teeth. He felt the strange sensation of being sorted, like the beam was picking through every detail of him, his age, his strength, his past. And then, as suddenly as it began, the beam faded. The smaller craft turned smoothly and returned to the giant vessel, merging back into its hull as if it had never existed. The glowing lines along the giant's body pulsed once, twice, then stilled. Varlek's voice was low. "It knows everything about us." Luro swallowed hard. "Sir, it's moving again." The massive ship began to turn not toward the Zereth, but toward the distant gas giant at the edge of the system. Its movement was slow, deliberate. "It's ignoring us?" Arichin asked. "For now," Varlek said. But Varlek wasn't sure. Something told him this thing hadn't dismissed them. It was simply done with whatever it had come to do here. "Follow it," he ordered. The crew obeyed, though unease weighed on the air. The Zereth trailed the silent giant through the emptiness, keeping a cautious distance. Hours passed. The closer they came to the gas giant, the more the sensors went wild, fluctuating readings. Gravity distortions, bursts of strange radiation that matched nothing in their databases. "This isn't just a ship," Luro said finally. "It's something else." Arichin gave her a sharp look. "Something else? Look at the way it moves," she said. "It doesn't travel through space. It shapes space around it." Varlek watched the glowing lines on the giant's hull shift again, subtle, almost imperceptible. He had no idea what they meant, but they weren't random. They were deliberate. And then, as the Zereth sensors reached the edge of the gas giant's orbit, the giant ship stopped. It hung there, silent and unmoving. And then the comms lit up. A voice spoke. It wasn't static. It wasn't alien gibberish. It was a clear, deep voice. "Speak in imperfect translation. Identify yourselves." The bridge went dead silent. No species could speak a language perfectly on first contact, not without years of shared data. Varlek leaned forward slowly. "This is Captain Varlek of the exploration ship Zereth. We mean no harm." There was a pause, then the voice said, "Designation, Human Battleship Vengeance. Class, Titan." The word human meant nothing to most of the crew, but Varlek saw Ren's eyes widen. He remembered the stories, the old myths. Human? Arachin whispered, "That's impossible. They're gone." The voice continued, calm and absolute. "You are inside restricted space." "Turn back," Varlek hesitated. His curiosity burned brighter than his fear. "Why is this space restricted?" "Silence. Do you represent the humans?" he asked. "Leave." The voice had not grown louder, but somehow it carried the weight of a threat far more dangerous than shouting. Before Varlek could answer, Luro's console screamed with an alert. "Incoming multiple ships fast." On the view screen, points of light appeared, warships, sleek and aggressive, belonging to a neighboring empire known for its hostility. "They're armed," Luro said. "And they're targeting the giant." Varlek turned back to the view screen. The massive black vessel didn't move. Didn't prepare weapons, it just waited. The enemy ships fired first blazing streams of plasma. Direct hits, the impact lit up space like a star's birth. Smoke and energy storms roiled across the giant's hull. And then the smoke cleared. The human battleship Vengeance stood untouched. The plasma storm faded. The battlefield fell silent. The enemy ships floated in formation, their weapons still glowing from the massive volley they had unleashed. Any normal warship would have been reduced to molten wreckage. But the giant black vessel, the so-called human battleship Vengeance, stood exactly where it had been. No burn marks. No shield flares. Nothing. Captain Varlek of the Zereth stared at the viewscreen, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were telling him. "Report," he ordered. Luro's hands danced over the controls, her voice tight. "No structural damage. No shield drop. Because, sir, I don't think it even has shields." Arachin turned toward her. "That's not possible. How can it survive without, I don't know?" Luro snapped, her fear breaking through. "But our sensors say it. Absorbed every joule of plasma energy fired at it. Stored it, like fuel." The enemy ships moved again. They spread out, trying to surround the Vengeance. Their weapons charged for another attack. Varlek expected the giant to dodge, to at least shift position. But it didn't. It didn't. Even power its weapons. It simply waited. The second volley came, harder, brighter, faster. The plasma beams carved through space, striking the massive black hull with thunderous force. Nothing. Not even a shimmer. Luro's console beeped an alarm. "Sir, the energy it's storing just increased by 40%. It's feeding on their attack." Ren's voice was low. "It's letting them hit it." Varlek felt a chill run down his spine. "Why?" The answer came a heartbeat later. The Vengeance moved. It didn't rotate. It didn't fire a visible weapon. Instead, there was a faint distortion in space, a ripple, like heat over stone. A single object detached from its hull. So small and fast the Zereth sensors almost missed it. Then dash impact. One of the enemy warships split cleanly in half. No explosion. No sound, just a perfect, silent cut, as though an invisible blade had passed through it. The remaining enemy ships panicked. They fired wildly, but their beams bent away from the Vengeance, curving harmlessly into the void. Varlek gripped the arm of his chair. "That's not a shield. That's space itself. Bending." The human ship's voice filled the comms again, calm and cold. "This is your only warning. Leave this place." The enemy ships hesitated. Then, with sudden coordination, They activated jump drives and vanished into hyperspace. The battlefield was empty except for two ships, the alien survey vessel Zereth and the human battleship Vengeance. Varlik expected the giant to leave as well, but it didn't. Instead, it turned slowly, deliberately toward the gas giant at the edge of the system. Follow? Luro asked cautiously. Varlik hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to flee. But the part of him that had survived decades of exploration, the part that had kept him alive in strange systems, knew this might be the only chance to see something the galaxy hadn't witnessed in centuries. Follow, he said. The Zereth trailed the massive vessel at a safe distance. As they moved deeper into the gas giant's shadow, the stars behind them began to vanish. The light dimmed, not because of distance, but because something was bending it away. Luro frowned at her console. Sir, space isn't behaving normally. Light is curving. Gravity is fluctuating. It's like we're inside a bubble. A trap? Arichan asked. No, Luro said. It's protection. From what, I don't know. Minutes passed. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Sensor readings flickered between impossible numbers. Sometimes the Vengeance appeared to be hundreds of kilometers long. Other times, barely the size of a frigate. Its mass shifted constantly, as if it existed in more than one size at once. Captain, Luro said softly, I think it's not in our space. Not fully. Varlik's voice was quiet. Then where is it? Before anyone could answer, the Vengeance slowed. It was approaching a region of total darkness, an area so black it swallowed even the faint light from the gas giant. No signals passed through it. No sensors could penetrate it. The Vengeance did not hesitate. It crossed the threshold and disappeared, lost visual. Luro shouted, I'm blind, sir. Sensors, nothing, it's gone. Varlik's jaw tightened. Hold position, scan again. They waited. Seconds dragged into minutes. The blackness in front of them seemed to pulse faintly, like it was breathing. Then, without warning, the Vengeance reappeared, but it was different. Its black hull was darker, the glowing lines along its body now burning white-hot. And it was not alone. Shapes emerged behind it. Dozens of them. Smaller than the Vengeance, but with the same unnatural smoothness, the same glowing patterns. They moved in perfect formation, silent and deadly. My gods, Arachan whispered. There's more. The Vengeance spoke again, its voice now resonating deeper. You have entered a restricted sector. You will leave immediately. This is not a request. Varlik tried to speak, but his throat felt tight. What is this place? The voice did not answer. Instead, the smaller vessels formed a wall between the Zereth and the black void. Luro's console flared with a sudden reading. Sir, our ship. It's being moved. What? Varlik turned sharply. We're not moving our engines, but something is pulling us backward. The Zereth's speed increased. The view of the black void shrank. The crew realized they were being pushed out of the region without consent. The Vengeance and its fleet did not follow. They remained at the edge of the darkness watching. Only when the Zereth was far enough did the pull stop. Varlik gripped the edge of his chair. He didn't want to admit it, but the message was clear. This was human territory. And they did not want company. The comms clicked once more. Do not return. Then the connection died. The massive ships turned in unison, vanishing back into the black void. The stars returned. Space felt lighter again. For a long time no one on the Zereth spoke. Finally Arachan said, Captain, do you believe it now? Varlik didn't answer, but deep inside, he knew the truth. The humans, those ancient myths were real. The darkness around the Zereth was deep and thick, like a black ocean swallowing the stars. The massive shape of the human battleship Vengeance hovered silently at the edge of the void, its glowing lines pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The alien crew was tense, their senses alert to every small noise and flicker of the ship's instruments. For hours, nothing had moved, and no messages came through the comms. Then, suddenly the silence broke. A voice. It was not static or noise, but a clear, calm voice. The sound echoed through the Zereth speakers, deep and steady, almost cold. "Identify yourselves," the voice said. Captain Varlik's heart pounded. He stood straighter and gripped the edge of the command console. The voice was perfectly clear in the ancient galactic common language, a language that had been in use for thousands of years but rarely spoken by new species. How can it speak?" one young crew member whispered. Varlik pushed the question away. "This is Captain Varlik of the exploration ship Zereth. We come in peace. We seek only to explore and learn." The silence that followed felt heavy, filled with unseen weight. Then the voice spoke again, slower this time. "Designation: Human Battleship Vengeance. Class: Titan. You are in restricted human space." The word human fell like a stone in the room. Varlik could see the shock on his crew's faces. The ancient record said humans had been destroyed centuries ago, wiped out in a terrible war. No one survived. Arachin, the second officer, whispered, They still exist." Varlik nodded, swallowing hard. "It seems so." The voice continued, "Firm and unyielding. You must leave immediately. This is your only warning." Varlik's mind raced. What was the ship? Why had humans returned after all this time? And why warn the alien crew so coldly? "We do not wish to fight," Varlik said carefully. "We mean no harm. We only wish to understand." There was a pause, then the voice spoke again. "Understanding comes at a cost." The words hung in the air, a clear threat hidden beneath. Calmness. Suddenly, the comms crackled. Another message, this time in a harsher tone, came from an unknown source. "A fleet of warships approaching fast. Hostiles detected." "Enemy fleet incoming," Luro announced, her voice tense. Varlik looked at the viewscreen. Bright points of light flashed rapidly. Enemy warships from the hostile Krillari Empire were warping into the system. "They want to attack the Vengeance," Arachin said. Varlik's heart sank. The enemy didn't understand the threat before them. The Vengeance remained still, like a giant waiting for a child to strike. The first beams of plasma fire struck the Vengeance's hull. The crew held their breath, expecting the black ship to be torn apart. But nothing happened, not even a shield flare. Luro's eyes widened. "It absorbed the energy again, stored it." Arachin shook his head. "How?" Varlik only knew one thing. The Vengeance was far beyond anything they had seen. The massive ship then responded with a sudden attack. It didn't fire light or plasma weapons. Instead, a silent, invisible strike swept through the enemy fleet, cutting warships in half, destroying dozens without a sound. The enemy fleet panicked, fleeing into hyperspace. Silence returned. Varlik let out a long breath. "They warned us, and they meant it." Then the comms crackled again. This time, the voice was softer, almost curious. "You have seen our power. Now you must decide. Will you leave and live, or stay and face destruction?" Varlik's voice was firm. "We will leave." The Zereth slowly began to pull away, but as they moved, the voice spoke once more. "Remember this day. Humanity has returned. We are no longer the prey of the galaxy. We are the hunters." The Vengeance turned and disappeared into the darkness. Varlik stared at the spot where it vanished. The silence after the enemy fleet fled was heavy. Captain Varlik and the crew of the Zereth could hardly believe what they had just seen. The human battleship Vengeance had stood still under a storm of plasma fire, and had not even flinched. Not only that, it had destroyed an entire fleet without moving or firing visible weapons. Varlik looked at his crew. They were silent, wide-eyed, and shaken. Luro, the sensor officer, was the first to break the silence. Sir, their hull is unlike anything in our database. It absorbs energy and stores it. It's like a battery. Arachin shook his head. That's impossible. Our best ships use energy shields to deflect fire, not soak it up. Varlek nodded slowly. Whatever it is, it's beyond our technology. The Vengeance didn't move away immediately. Instead, it shifted slightly. The glowing lines on its hull pulsed brighter, like a warning signal. Then, from deep within the battleship, a weapon fired. It was silent. It was invisible. But the effect was devastating. On the view screen, the enemy fleet's remains were visible. One of the warships was split perfectly in half. No explosion. No sound, just a clean, precise cut. It's a kinetic weapon, Luro said, eyes wide, but faster than any projectile we know. It moves too quickly for sensors to track. Ren's voice was tense. A weapon like that could destroy planets. The Zereth crew watched in horror and awe as the Vengeance fired again. Each time, it destroyed one enemy ship silently and instantly. The remaining enemy warships tried to regroup and attack. But every attack was met with the same fate. The enemy fleet scattered, their ships breaking formation. One by one, they jumped to hyperspace. The battlefield was empty except for the Zereth and the Vengeance. Varlek realized the battle was over. The humans had shown their power clearly, but the Vengeance's voice came over the coms again, cold, calm. You have been warned. Do not return. Varlek stared at the screen. We should leave, he said. The crew nodded in agreement. As the Zereth began to move away, the human battleship stayed in place for a moment longer. Then, without any visible engines or sound, it turned and disappeared into the darkness. The crew was silent as the stars returned to view. Arachin broke the silence. They called themselves hunters, Varlek nodded. And they have weapons that can tear through entire fleets. Luro looked at the readings again. The humans. They are not just another species. They are something else. Varlek knew she was right. The galaxy had believed humans were extinct, but they were not. They were alive. And they were terrifying. The Zereth began the long journey home. Varlek thought about what to report. Would anyone believe the story? Would anyone prepare for what was coming? He didn't know, but one thing was certain. The Zereth drifted through the cold emptiness of space, carrying a heavy burden on its shoulders. Captain Varlek stood on the bridge, staring at the stars that blurred past the thick glass. Each twinkle seemed small and distant, but inside Varlek's heart, the fear grew like a dark storm. The human battleship Vengeance had changed everything. It was not just a ship, it was a message, a warning carved from steel and fire. The galaxy was no longer safe. The crew moved quietly around the bridge, their faces pale and tense. They all knew the stories, the myths told in whispers across countless worlds. Humans had vanished hundreds of years ago, wiped out in a great war no one fully understood. Now those myths lay shattered by the cold truth of the Vengeance. Varlek's voice broke the silence. Prepare for jump to home system. We must report everything to the Council. His words carried weight, but inside he feared the reaction they would receive. When the Zereth arrived at the Galactic Council station, the reception was far colder than Varlek had expected. The council chambers were filled with officials from dozens of species. Their eyes were sharp and suspicious. Many were expressions of disbelief, others of anger. Humans had been a nightmare of the past, an enemy too terrible to survive. Now those nightmares had returned. Varlek stood tall as he presented the data collected during their encounter. Images of the black battleship, energy readings, the silent destruction of enemy fleets. The holograms floated above the table, painting a terrifying picture. Council leader Sen Kull spoke first, his voice calm but serious. Captain Varlek, you ask us to believe that humans live and command a ship of such power? What proof beyond your word do you offer? Varlek activated a recording. The deep, mechanical voice of the Vengeance echoed through the chamber. This is human battleship Vengeance. You are in restricted space. Leave now. The room fell into stunned silence. Disbelief shifted to fear. Council members whispered urgently, recalling long-forgotten histories. Human weapons had ended entire civilizations. Their ships were said to be unstoppable. The myths were no longer just stories. Senkal raised his hand for silence. If this is true, we face a threat unlike any before. We must prepare. But first we must understand. The council formed a task force. Varlek was made its leader. Their mission: gather information on the humans. Learn their strengths, their weaknesses, and their plans. Back aboard the Zereth, the crew braced for what lay ahead. Sensors were upgraded, weapon systems tested. Every member knew the coming days might decide the fate of the galaxy. Weeks passed with no new contact from the humans. The silence was unsettling. Then, one day, the Zereth's long-range scanners picked up a fleet moving through the outer system. It was a human fleet, much larger than the Vengeance alone. Varlek's heart raced. This was the moment they had feared and hoped for. The fleet moved with precision, each ship a shadow of black metal glowing with white energy lines. The humans did not send messages or signals. They did not broadcast intentions. They simply moved, a dark tide sweeping through the stars. The Council's warships scrambled to meet them. Alarms screamed as battle stations were manned. The galaxy was ready to fight for survival, but the humans did not attack. Instead, the fleet stopped just outside the Council's territory. The Vengeance spoke again, calm and unyielding. We come with one message: the era of weakness is over. We are the Titans now. Those who oppose us will fall. Those who join us will survive. The words sent chills through the Council. It was not a threat, but a statement of power. A declaration that the humans were no longer prey, they were hunters. Varlek watched the faces around him. Some were angry, some terrified. But all knew one truth: the galaxy had changed forever. The Council debated what to do. Some wanted war. Others urged caution. But no one denied the power of the humans. Varlek made his choice clear. We cannot fight them. Not yet. We must learn more. Find their weakness before it finds us. The humans, meanwhile, continued their silent advance. Their fleets moved with terrifying efficiency, taking control of key star systems. Entire planets swore allegiance or faced destruction. Stories spread quickly. Tales of entire armadas wiped out by a single human ship. Of cities destroyed by weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Of soldiers who never returned from battle. Varlek and his team worked tirelessly. They gathered every scrap of data. They analyzed every weapon signature, every tactic. Slowly, a picture began to form. Humans were not just advanced. They had evolved. Their ships were built with technologies unknown to most species. Their weapons could manipulate space, time, and energy. They were faster, stronger, smarter, but even Titans have weaknesses. Varlek discovered a strange pattern. The humans avoided certain kinds of radiation fields. Their ships showed signs of stress near specific energy signatures. It's small, Varlek told the Council, but it's there. We have a chance. The Council began training special teams, elite pilots and scientists to exploit these weaknesses. The galaxy braced for war, but hope remained. On the Zereth, Varlek watched the stars and whispered, "Titan or not, we will survive." He knew the coming battles would be fierce and brutal. But he also knew one thing: humanity's return had changed the rules forever. The name Titan was now the name that ended wars,